Hello, I'm Becky Norton from the Spirit of 76 Museum, and I'm here with Jenny Arntz, who is the director of Main Street Wellington. You know, in the past we've been at the museum, we have been at Main Street office, we've even been at the fairgrounds. Today we are at Herrick Memorial Library, and joining us is Janet Hollingsworth, and she is the librarian here at the library. I was at a museum again. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you.
We're so glad to be here and to be in this beautiful library. It's one of my favorite places since I was a little kid. And as some of you sharp-eyed viewers may notice, we do have some Willard paintings and sketches behind us, and they are originals. There are several more here in the library that are just beautiful. So if you don't want to check out a book, which I'm hoping you would, I do want you to come and look at the Willard paintings. So Janet, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the library?
Sure. Back in the 1800s, a family called the Herrick family, they lived out in Huntington Township and were farmers. And at that time, Wellington had a library that was a association library. You had to pay a fee to be able to borrow books out of there. But Myron T. Herrick's parents, one of the gentlemen who gave us this library, his parents thought it was so important for reading and all like that they were willing to take and spend, I think it was probably about $2 a year for their family and children to use the library. At that time, the library was housed in one of the storefronts here in town, and you went in and you borrowed your book and you left. You didn't have a place where you could sit down and or browse around. You know, you had to know what you were looking for. The story goes that he told his parents that when he grew up, if he ever got rich, that he would take and he would build a library in their honor. And lo and behold, he did. So construction for this library began in 1902. And it cost $40,000 for the entire structure, and we're in what was the entire structure at that time. Myron T. Herrick was then running for governorship and won the governorship. He came back in 1904 and dedicated the library, opened its doors on January 4th. And a couple of years later, he appointed the first black female librarian in the state to take and manage the library. And she was phenomenal. Her name was Edith Robinson.
Yes.
She took this small library and had it with such a high circulation rate of borrowing of books and all like that they ended up expanding. And again, Myron T. Herrick loaned or gave the money to have the expansion put on in memory and honor of his grandson. So the library is not just about books today. We do digital lending. We have board games and toys and puzzles. They're all learning devices for children, and so we have those that they can check out. People can come in here and sit and study, use our internet computers. If they don't know how to use the computers, we teach them how on a one-on-one basis. We're getting ready to offer some programs that we're going to work with some older adults and teach them how to use a computer.
No, I do know how to use a computer. I'm not real proficient at it, but I do.
We have a lot of older adults who don't have access to a computer at their home. You know, they don't have the internet, they can't afford the cost of a computer, and also we teach them how to use a computer, from using the mouse and the keyboard to how to get an email account, to eventually start going out and using the web to take and find the information that they need, and we try to teach them how to do it safely.
And it's so important now, especially when you go to the doctor's office and they want to send you things on the computer, reminders or whatnot. I know that Ms. Robinson was one of the longest tenured librarians here. How long have you been here?
I have been here now, this year, 20 years. I'm starting my 21st year. Yes. It has been a pleasure. What makes it really nice is that I only live about 15 minutes away from here, so the commute isn't there anymore. I came from working at Ashland Library. I was in charge of their extension services, which is bookmobile and outreach and homebound. And at that point, you know, I was also going for my master's and building a house, so it was a
yes.
busy couple of years.
Raising your daughter, who is
Yes.
also a tremendous librarian at our school system, and she's into the theater and has done so much there, so she takes after her mom and all the wonderful things
I
she
can't
does.
take credit for that. She continually amazes me on the different things that she
Wow.
does, you know, and I sit back and I'm very proud of her. I know that, I feel that I've done a good job, but so much more beyond what I ever dreamed of. I mean, she's just a phenomenal person.
Yeah. Well, you've done a wonderful job here. It's the collection is always up to date, and it's always a pleasure to come in. Like I said, it is one of my favorite places to be, and I just returned books this morning, as a matter of fact. Find some more. Besides the things that you do here, I know that sometimes you have reading contests and that sort of thing, where if you, for those of you who might not know, when you read a book, you get to fill out a slip and it goes in a drawing. It has wonderful prizes. How do you fund those kinds of things?
The prizes for our adults is completely funded by the Friends of the Library. They run book sales. They also have a fundraiser that is coming up. It's called Harvest of the Arts, where it is a juried art show, and all the proceeds from that come back to the library to be used for programming. So when it comes time for me to do a programming, I create a budget for what we're going to do. So I just did one and they approved it, but it goes from September until December. I present the budget to them and explain what each of the programs are going to be, or what we hope they will turn out to be, because sometimes they don't turn out that way. And they take and vote on, you know, funding them or not.
Sure.
There's been a few years where things were very, very lean, and they voted to fund them, but they had to take and make payments out to us on the money. So, you know, it's like any place else. You know, we have a tight budget, and we are working at trying to get this library to grow, get people to use it, teaching young children how to use the library, but more important, teaching parents with very young children how to use books in their child's life, how to introduce them to it. So we have our story programs. We have what we call LAPSIT, and that is from birth until 2 years. And this is definitely where we're working with the parents, and we know that parents, when they're that young, they're so busy. But how to teach them to use quiet times and books together, you know, how to snuggle your child on your lap or beside you and read the books, because that creates a memory to where when they are older, they're still going to want to read, because each time they open a book, they're going to think about the feeling that it was when mom read books too, and they're going to develop favorite books. You know, we have some children that come in and repeatedly check out the same book because it was one that their parents have read to them, and it resonates with them.
Yes. Well, I came from a family of readers, and we had stacks of books, and my husband the same way, and we still read every night before we go to bed, and it's a nice habit to have. How about you, Jenny? Are you?
It depends, but I will say that my daughter, we have taken part in quite a few of the children's programs, the Countdown to Kindergarten. I think there was one Ready, Set, Go. We've went into the Big 40-Foot Whale this summer, and we just recently went to the Meteor Shower program. So I mean, it's just amazing the diversity that you have with a lot of the programs. So I know we do need to read more. Daisy does love to read, but we haven't been to the library as much as we should have.
Well,
but it is a wonderful resource.
And we understand that there are times when parents, they just are too busy to do that, and that's why we try to introduce them into the Libby app. And it's something to where they can download the digital books. They can still create that reading. We still get a count for the books that they check out on the Libby app, because it's authenticated to their library card. But there are children's books in there, and you know, we have teen books, and we also have our adult books. So it makes it a nice way so that if you're too busy, you can still have books on hand. You know, it may be in a little bit different format, you know, but it still is a book.
Still reading, yes. Well, I love that you can get on and renew your book if you want to, or you can see all the new books and see the summaries of them. And I think that's a wonderful thing too. And we get reminders too that your book is due in 2 days in case you forget because you're busy doing whatever. So how is the library itself? I know you have to keep the lights on, you have to buy books, you have salaries to pay. Where does that money come from?
We, in the state of Ohio, which is, every person that's in this state is very lucky, the libraries are a line item on the state budget. So we get a small percentage of that. It goes into the county and then it's divided up among the libraries there. So I get a percentage of that, and that's actually, for this library here, is probably about 52% of our budget. The other half of it comes from local levies that we have. And we have been very honored and just very happy that all of our levies have always passed. We try not to be extravagant. We know that it's a cost to the people, but we also know that we are here for when they need us for something, you know, and it's important that we still be able to provide the services that they want, but also that they are used to.
Yes. Well, to me, having a wonderful library is as important as the safety services that we have. It's part of your mental health growth to be able to come and find information, and there's just something about opening a book and turning the pages that I like so much better than reading on my Kindle or on my iPad or whatever. It makes a big difference. Well, this month we have the Connect to a Cause campaign going on. You want to talk about that a little bit, Jenny?
Sure. On September 15th, there's a 12-hour crowdfunding event through the Community Foundation of Lorraine County. And so it's from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's mostly all virtual. There's over 70 nonprofits that are a part of it. I know that the library is not a part of this year's. We are hoping that you'll join the Museum in Main Street next year in being a part of it. But it's an effort to make Lorraine County aware not only of the nonprofits and all of the wonderful services and resources that we all provide to the county, but also to encourage people to give to endowments. And so we know that the library has an endowment, and people can certainly give to the endowment, and whether it's by donating per year or putting it into their will, or their money markets. There's all sorts of things. So that was the reason why Becky and I wanted to come and chat with you, just to raise that awareness of what an endowment is and what they are. It's really providing a future. But we know that your endowment for the library does pay for some important projects and programs. So we would love to hear more about that.
Yes, we do have an endowment, and that was started by the Friends probably about, it was before I was here, so I'm going to say probably about 25 years ago. It was when the director then was Pat Lindley, and she helped get them interested in starting it and worked with the Community Foundation to get it. We've been trying to grow it because we know at some point in time that we will need to rely upon the payouts of the interest off of the money in there to use it for running special programs in here. And when I say special programs, it may be to where we're developing a lending library of, and I'm going to call it artifacts. We're looking at in the beginning stages of creating what we call a tool shed. And it won't be just, it'll be garden tools, it'll be hand tools, carpentry tools, some basic mechanical tools. Also, it will be pots and pans that are specialties that people who may want to take and try and do a special cake or something. We may have the form for them. We're looking at the process right now with our policies. We have to be, then we're looking at what types of materials we want to do in here. So we can use an interest payment out from there, say next year, to start purchasing the materials for there, because it has to come from somewhere, and right now we do not have a line item. And once it's developed, then as we add to it, it can come out of a created line item for it then. The endowment has helped us in the past to buy a computer projector and a pull-down screen for our community room for meetings, and sometimes for instance, we had a program about piracy on the Great Lakes, and it came from the presenter was from the National Museum of Great Lakes. And they needed, of course, a computer projector and the screens to be able to project several of their pictures and all of the whole idea of what type of piracy was taking place. And it's not what most people thought, but it was a really, really well-informed program.
Yes. Well, the thing that some people might not realize how important the endowments are, because you put the money in and that's not spent. Only the interest is spent, so that it grows over time. You will be getting more money as the years go on and as the endowment grows, but the endowment itself does not get tapped into, which I think is a very important thing. But what a wonderful thing to have it at your fingertips, to be able to know that you're going to get a little extra money to do. I think this program is wonderful. Do you have space for it?
Yes, we're
Speaking from the museum, we never have enough space.
We're looking at, always when we have our materials, we're constantly adding to the weeding. So the weeding process is we look at materials that haven't circulated out or been borrowed in 5 years. The covers may be really tattered and we cannot replace the book or anything like that. So then we may pull that out of the collection, and so we create space for more books to go in. We have one area where we weeded out our music CDs, and so we have less than what we used to have. We still have a good collection, but most people now are streaming their music, and so we see that there's less borrowing happening in that area.
Sure.
We also are seeing that there is less borrowing happening in our adult audiobook area, because they can download from Libby, which is all right, because we can still do that, and they can listen to the audiobooks through Libby. But also that they can stream so many things, and they have a Kindle device and or different things like that, and most cars now do not have a CD player anymore. So our books on tape, we're going to be looking at weeding them out, and we will be able to move them over into where we have some of our CD collections. So we have some space that we can move things around, and we're not going to start large with this collection. And eventually, it'll work out. It always does. We seem to find the space,
Now, if someone watching today thinks, oh, that's a great idea, I would like to donate, say, $100 towards that particular program, can they bring a check to you?
Yes.
And say specifically, this is what I want it to go towards?
We've received many times where people, have had someone in their family pass away, and they were a library user, and they have it in the obituary to please donate to the library. If they do not have a specific area of books or titles and stuff that they would like us to purchase, then we send that funds on to the endowment, because that is, and we talk it over with the family first, and let them understand what this endowment is doing, and that their family member is always going to be remembered, because they're going to be on this list of people who have given to our endowment.
Yes.
We have sometimes people who come in and they're very specific. My aunt, she loved reading mysteries, and wants to buy a mystery book. So we will purchase a mystery. We try to find out their favorite author. We'll buy that book in that area, and we put a book plate inside, in honor of this person, and who the purchaser was.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing. It's nice to open a book and see who donated it and whose memory you're honoring by borrowing that book. I think it's just a fabulous thing.
We have one gentleman who lives down in the Columbus area, and he was very good friends with a granddaughter of one of our former trustees. And every year he sends us a check for funds to go into the endowment in her memory, so,
That's
and he
wonderful.
specifies into the endowment for
Yes.
there, you know, just,
Yes.
and that is wonderful, because it's slowly gaining the base, and then
Right.
we get, you know, for us to get the interest off, but it's there, you know,
Yes.
just, and, our goal, I would love, before I retire, to be able to have the endowment to hit $1 million mark.
Oh,
It
that's
probably may
exciting.
not happen, because, you know, retirement looms. You
Oh,
just-
well, I hope not too
within
soon, but.
Probably within the next 5 years.
Okay, all right, so we
Not
get to
before.
keep you for a little
Yes,
while.
yes, not before.
So, well, I think the wonderful thing is that the people that use the library, well, actually, all of the people in town are just very, very generous in support. And there are a lot of endowments here in town. Jenny and I will be talking to some people. I know that we have a scheduled, interview with the Wellington Schools Endowment, which is close to my heart, also having been a teacher, and I remember when that was started. And everybody, it was kind of a new thing when the superintendent at that time decided that we would get into it, and that's been really a wonderful thing. So make sure that you look forward to that. Jenny, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just look forward to Harvest of the Arts. It's
Yes.
always one of the wonderful events in town.
That is, we actually kind of really snarled the traffic in town.
It's wonderful, it is a wonderful event, and, like Janet said, it does all go back to the museum, I keep saying, back to the library. What if you want to send some to the museum?
When you sit on many boards, it happens.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, if you have some time to come to the Harvest of the Arts, and the book sales are always fabulous. I love coming to the book sales. But do support the library. It's a wonderful place. Come in and look around. It's just beautiful here, and a wide variety of books. So Janet, thank you so much for having us today.
You're welcome. I do
And-
want to make one comment,
Yes.
that doing paying into somebody's endowment
Mhm.
is probably one of the longest gifts that you can have given
Yes.
to this entity that you give
Yes.
into. So I would always recommend someone to give into an endowment.
Yes, it's quite a legacy. So do use the library, and thank you for watching.